Hi, I'm Heidi Russo Allen, and welcome back to my adoption journey, A Beautiful Mess. This is the second video in the series of videos that I'm doing, just documenting my journey through adoption. And what better time to do it than now? Today's November 1st, and it is National Adoption Awareness Month. So, not a better time. This video today, I'm going to talk about the events in my life that led up to finding myself pregnant at a young age. And I think many women out there, younger women, may have gone through the same things or felt the same way. And I don't think the way that I felt was anybody's fault or any ill-intended things that happened. I think it's just part of growing up and just the way I felt and what got me to the point where I was seeking the approval from the opposite sex. So, I was born in Wisconsin, in Green Bay, and typical family life. My parents, there's three siblings. I have two sisters, older sister, younger sister. I'm the middle child. And we lived in Green Bay and for several years. And then elementary school, I believe I was in fourth grade, we moved to a small city out of Green Bay. And that move for our family, for me, was a little bit difficult. I did not like where we had moved to. Like a lot of kids who move, I didn't like the name of the street we lived on, to be completely honest. And I still remember that address. But my dad was starting a business with a friend of his, and so we moved, and it was fine. Although at some point, I think things became more stressful with the business, and my parents were fighting a lot, like a lot of younger kids. Parents do in family. And so there's a specific event that happened that I recall feeling less than good about myself as a young child. And that came, and at that point I started noticing, I think, differences between myself and my sisters, or I just noticed differences. The incident that I recall happening was we were at the dinner table with my parents, my sisters, the whole family's there. And, you know, Wisconsin, meat and potato family, that's where I grew up. And I remember at dinner, I don't even remember what we were having, but there were also dinner rolls on the table. And I went to take a dinner roll as my 10-year-old, and my dad slapped my hand. And I think his intentions were for me to be more aware. I wasn't a chubby child or a fat child. I was average. But at that moment, I felt, I guess, rejected by my dad, or that my dad saw me in a different light than I saw myself. And from that moment, I remember that to this day, and I'm in my 50s. And so that was a turning point for me at a young age. Now, does that happen a lot? Yes. Do I blame my dad? No, I love my dad. My dad and I have a great relationship. So Dad, if you're watching this, you didn't do anything wrong. I do think that knowing what we know now and learning what we have learned about women and girls and their self-images, we do differently now. But at the time we do what we know. So that's probably my earliest memory of not feeling accepted. That's a good word for it, accepted. And then later on, still living in that same city, things fell apart with my parents. They ended up getting divorced. And I do remember them telling us when I was, I think I was around 12 or 13. And I remember them saying that they were going to separate. They didn't say they were getting divorced. They were going to separate. And I remember not even crying because I knew they had been arguing a lot and I already knew that I think that was coming. So my parents ended up separating, still saw my dad. And then a year later, before my freshman year in high school, we moved. My mom moved the three of us girls to a suburb of Milwaukee, away from my dad. My dad stayed in that same town. And so I think that I understand why my mom did it. She was alone, and her family, her support system was in Milwaukee, suburb of Milwaukee. So I understand why she would move us girls. Totally understand. But for me, I know I felt like that was, again, my dad being even further out of our lives. And that was hard. I was close to my dad. And during those teen years, my mom and I butted heads a lot. I was stubborn and I asked a lot of questions. I didn't agree with everything. Like, why are things this way? And why do I have to do things this way? And why? And I'm not sure my mom was really prepared to handle my questions, my curiosity, my bucking the system of the way our family did things. But I did. I was that child. I wanted to why is society this way? Why are things this way? Why do I have to do this? Why when I go to church, do I have to go to confession? Why do I need a middleman? All these questions. And I just don't think my mom, who is a very strong, strict Catholic, knew how to handle that. And that's okay. But I challenged her. I challenged a lot of the things in stigmas, stereotypes, everything in society. I challenged it. So anyhow, from that point on, when we moved to Milwaukee, we didn't see my dad a lot. And it was hard. It wasn't a cordial divorce between my parents. It was pretty ugly. And I think I didn't really understand why. I know divorces are ugly. I've been through one myself that was pretty ugly. But what I didn't understand was, I know my mom's family was there to support her. And at the same time, some pretty ugly things were said about my dad that maybe we weren't supposed to overhear, but we did. And that was difficult. That was like another thing that was like, my dad left us and he didn't want us. And those things were just hard. And I don't think anything was malicious or meant in a way that would affect me the way it did. And I believe my sisters have different experiences of how that affected them. But I was pretty close to my dad. So that was difficult. And we would see my dad on the weekends here and there, but then it got to the point where all these negative things that you're hearing built up, and then we didn't want to see my dad, and my dad still persisted, and which was great, but then we didn't see my dad all the time. And so that was hard, not having your dad around, especially during those teenage years when you're starting to become a woman. All of those things, you want your dad there to validate and who you are as a young woman and show you how you should be treated by a man as a young woman. And I didn't have that on a regular basis. Not that it's his fault. I've learned a lot since that point, and my dad's a great dad. I love my dad. He's been there for me through really tough times, and I'm going to talk about that. But during that time, he was trying to get his life together. My mom was trying to move on with her life. It was just hard. It was a hard time. So that just affected me in that way. So what do? You seek out approval from boys your own age. So in high school, I had a boyfriend. It was my junior year. And that's where my first real boyfriend, I can say. I met him at high school, and in high school, we went to the same high school, and we went to the junior prom together, dated for a little bit, and then it was the first time I had had sex with anyone. And so that ended up, sorry, mom and dad, they don't know this, but I got pregnant as a junior in high school. And his family lived in the same city, if you will, but they looked at me as coming from the broken family. My parents were divorced, and divorce wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So, I got good grades. I was an athlete, played volleyball, played basketball, and track. So I wasn't a bad kid. I was a kid trying to find her way, and sought the affection from my boyfriend. And the first time we have sex, I get pregnant. Didn't tell my mom. Didn't tell my dad. My sisters didn't know. Nobody knew. So, and when I found out, I told him, and his response was, my parents are going to kill me. It's going to ruin my life. You need to get rid of it. And so, looking back, what is really hard and sad is that I didn't for once think, how is this going to affect me? I thought, I don't want to ruin your life. I don't want your parents to look at you differently. I didn't have a very high regard or self-esteem. So I didn't have any money, and said he couldn't take money out of his bank account because his parents managed it, they would know. So I asked a friend of mine at school, who was a good friend, if I could borrow the money to have an abortion. And so I did. And that also did something to you. It was awful. And I felt awful. About myself and what I had done. And you try to pick it up and you try to move on because my mom didn't know. So I had to act like everything was okay. And so I did. And then my boyfriend and I broke up. Not uncommon. Pretty much knew that was going to happen. And so continued to go to school like nothing had happened. But something had happened to me. And again, looking, I guess, for that acceptance or reassurance or something from the opposite sex or the male in your life. And when something like that happens, and I didn't have that. So all that to say, went on with school, with sports, all of that, graduated high school, and was all set to go to college. And like I said, my mom and I hadn't been getting along. She was working and it was hard for her trying to raise 3 girls. Not that people don't do it, they do. But it was hard for her and I didn't make it easier. So I was accepted to La Crosse, University of Wisconsin at La Crosse, and was set to go. And I was scared and not sure what I wanted to do in life. Felt like there was more to life than this. Something, I just felt a pull to do something different. So 3 weeks before I was supposed to go to college, I said I wasn't going. And I know my mom was devastated. I had been working at a company where my uncle was working, and thought I was, at that time, I think I was making $9 an hour or $10 an hour. I thought it was great money. I was smarter than everybody. I didn't need to go to college. This was great, but I wasn't living at home at the time. I had moved out pretty much when I was 18. I was living with a friend and then got an apartment. So I was having trouble making ends meet, but I wasn't ready to go to college. So I didn't. And so my best friend in high school, Dawn, she knows who she is, is black. And we played basketball together. I was 6'2" something, and she was short. And so we were like Mutt and Jeff together. But I hung out with her a lot. And so after I graduated high school and didn't go to college, I was hanging out with her a lot and another friend of ours who has since passed away. But Dawn's was a great friend of mine. we are still in contact. She's a great person. And I think during that time of my life, growing up, I think I was curious. I think, because I wasn't really raised around people of color. I was raised around very white people. Dawn and so a few other people of color went to my high school. And Dawn and I don't know, we just got each other. We are great friends. And so I think I want to learn more about her too. But she was funny. She still is funny. She's hilarious. But we just had a lot of fun together. So Dawn and we drank together. We would go out, and honestly, I can't remember where we went, but we'd go to whatever friend's house or her house. I remember being in her basement at her parents' house. But she and another friend of ours, the one who has now passed away, we were going to go to that friend's, I'll just call her Anne. And we were going to go to Anne's boyfriend's brother's house. And so we did. And that is where I met this man who was incredibly charming. And that started a whole nother whirlwind of events as an 18-year-old. He was 28. I didn't know that initially when I met him, but that night with Dawn and our friend Anne and her boyfriend, we went to, I'm going to call him Jeff. We went to Jeff's house. And that's where I was really first introduced to marijuana. Yeah, so I was 18. So we're going to stop there. Stay tuned for my next video when I talk about the events that happened when I met the father of Colin and how that all came to be. So that's it for now. That's enough for today. I will talk to you all soon. Thanks for watching.